It's that time of the year. It's time for our predictions for 2022. But before we get into that, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to David Proctor. He reached out to me, I guess about a month ago, and asked me, he said, "Hey, Mark, whenever you do your predictions for 2022, can you go back and see how accurate you were with your previous predictions for 2021? And it's like, why have I not thought about that? So before we get in our predictions for next year, let's talk about what I predicted last year and see how much of it I got right, see what we can laugh at. So last year I predicted $60 a barrel for WTI. Obviously, we hit that. I also predicted that peak oil is not happening. Peak oil demand is not happening, which I also looks like I nailed that one. My first true prediction, though, was loss of downstream dominance. I missed that one. I still think it's going to happen. I still think the U.S. is going to lose its downstream dominance. It's just going to take longer than I thought it was, and I really thought it was going to happen this year. Number two, consolidation of tech. Absolutely, I nailed that one right. There's a bunch of big tech mergers and acquisitions this year that actually service the oil and gas industry. I expect that trend to continue. Number three, Generation Z coming into the workforce. I absolutely nailed that one. It's really funny to me. The oldest millennials now in their 40s. So this Generation Z is coming in and changing the culture of not only the oil and gas industry, but all the industry verticals out there. And I think it's awesome. Number fourth, rebirth the Canadian oil and gas industry. Boy, I missed that one. I totally failed at that one. My logic was that as our politicians drove up the cost of doing business here and our need for that heavy complex crude goes up because of demand, that the Canadian oil and gas industry would step in and fill in. Unfortunately for our Canadian brothers and sisters, they have the same politics that are hurting their industry, actually in some ways even worse than it is here in the U.S. So I totally missed that rebirth of the Canadian oil and gas industry. My apologies. I really wish I was right about that. Then number five, remote worker. Obviously, I nailed that one. Remote workers are all over the place. I actually have a little equity stake in a company called Realware. Keep your eye on them. They are greatly benefiting from this remote worker trend this year and will continue in the future. And then ESG, I absolutely nailed that one to the point that we even have an ESG podcast, which is being actually reformatted and is going to be launching again early next year. Number seven, I predicted last year, the importance of hydrogen. I got that one right. Number eight, loss of the middleman, the lack of distributors. That one's kind of gray. That trend is starting to happen where the major suppliers the major buyers and operators are going straight to the manufacturers. But the middleman, the distributor part is still strong. It looks like it probably will be for a few more years. So let's call that one a draw, the loss of the middleman. And then number nine, tracing hydrocarbons from reservoir to consumer. The ability is there, the technology is there, but I completely missed that one. Nobody really cares right now. I thought they would for ESG metrics, but yeah, I completely missed that one. And then the last one that I predicted this year is talent, particularly around how young people here in Europe don't want to go to school to work in the oil and gas industry, which means that our next generation of engineers and project managers and accountants are going to come from countries that don't have that bias. Russia, Africa, the Middle East, and it's happening. So I think if you look at what I did last year, I got about 75% of those correct, which is actually a little bit better than my average. I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I think my average is around 73%. Let's get into what I think is going to happen next year in 2022. Price-wise, I think we're going to be average around $78 a barrel for WTI. I know we're higher than that now, December of 2021, and I expect the price to stay higher for the first, say, quarter, maybe even 2 quarters of next year. But then I expect as supply comes online, that price will go down. I think the average next year for 2022 for WTI is going to be $78 a barrel. Our industry as a whole, we're here to stay. But unfortunately, the U.S. is losing its dominance both in the upstream side of the house, the midstream side of the house, the downstream side of the house because of our politics. We will continue to use and burn 20 million barrels a day here in the U.S. Unfortunately, I think a lot of those hydrocarbons have come from other countries that don't care as much about the environment as we do. It's neither here or there, but our industry is in a good place, especially outside the U.S. and in Europe. And it's the hydrocarbon industry, the oil and gas industry, is going to stay around forever. But we're losing our ownership of the top levels here in the U.S., which is sad because of our politics. Let's actually get into my 10 predictions, though. Number one, We're headed toward a global energy shortage of epic proportions, something the modern world at least, has never seen. It's unfortunate. We're going to run out of both crude and gas. And when I say run out, that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get crude oil or natural gas. What I mean is that the oversupply that buffers price swings isn't going to be there. It's actually already not there for natural gas. And so what's going to happen is the price of energy is going to go up for everybody. For people that are well off in the world, it's not going to be that big a deal to pay an extra $100 a month for your electricity bill or an extra $20 to fill up your car. Unfortunately, for people that are less well off, they're going to be impacted the most. And it's not just affecting the Western world, it's going to affect the entire world for next year, a global energy shortage. And I expect some places in the world to see their energy costs go up. The cost of their energy to go up to 40%. That's crazy, almost 50% increase for 2022. I really hope I'm wrong about that one, folks. The next thing, fertilizer shortage. Between 60 and 70% of all the fertilizer used in the world gets its ammonia from natural gas. So natural gas is a feedstock for fertilizer. Well, because we have this high price of natural gas because of lack of supply, in a couple of months, around March, you'll see fertilizer prices go up. Now, let me tell you what's scary about that. It's not the cost of the fertilizer that I'm worried about too much. It's the cost of food. So the cost of food will go up globally. I mean, when you're talking about 60 or 70% of the world is fed with fertilizer made from natural gas and those prices go up, that means 60 or 70% of the world's food price is going to go up. Once again, the people that are well off aren't going to suffer as much. You know, if I pay an extra $50, $80 a month at the grocery store, I may grumble, but it's not going to be the end of the world for me. But people that aren't as well off are going to suffer actually to feed their families. And once again, I really hope I'm wrong about this one as well. Then you can see all the petrochemical plants and refineries that have traditionally been built around the world combine. So you can see combo plants being built all over the place because they have a flexibility in feedstock. The driver never was there before, but with these high prices and with some of the other things that we're entering into next year, I think most of the new petrochemical refineries are going to be combination plants. It's actually really cool. It means that whatever is you can make money at next month, you can switch that plant to produce that. So if one month it makes more sense for you to make jet fuel, you can make jet fuel. If you know another quarter it makes more sense for you to make naphtha, then you make more naphtha. But I think it's one of the trends that a lot of people go miss is all the new plants are going to be combo plants because of that feedstock flexibility. Then supply chain. And I know, I mean, everybody's seen the pictures, all the container ships stuck in ports all around the world. It's much bigger than that. You know, things like tubulars. Nobody can get tubulars out in the Permian right now. That means even though the demand's coming back and people want to drill, if you can't get the raw parts to actually drill and complete and go in production for a well, you're not going to be able to go in production. That's going to do a couple of things. It's going to drive prices up for all the parts and pieces we need in our industry to function. It's going to be that people that normally would not have used things like previously used drill stem. There's going to be a market for used parts and pieces that's going to come back with a roar, which means the aftermarket and the refurbishing of equipment in our industry is going to take off. So if you're in a service company and part of your business is repairing motors, pumps, whatever, that part of your business is going to go through the roof because of these supply chain issues. And these supply chain issues in oil and gas are hit us particularly hard because a lot of the choices that companies are making right now, especially between some of the big manufacturing areas of the world like China, is they're prioritizing consumer goods because you can make more margin on that. Well, that means they're not going to prioritize moving the parts and pieces we need in the oil and gas industry, especially in the upstream side of the house. So supply chains will be a major issue, could drive prices all through the industry. It's going to cause things like new technologies and maybe new process and maybe even new tools to be adopted. So if you're a valve manufacturer and you can never get your foot in the door in oil and gas, 2022 is be a good year for you to come in the industry and show what you can do. Then combined with that supply chain issues, inflation, the cost of everything is going up. And I talked earlier about how I think this global energy shortage is going to drive the price of energy up. Then eventually that shortage of natural gas especially is going to drive the price of fertilizer up, which then will drive the price of food up. Well, we naturally have this inflation thing going on here in the US and in Europe and actually around the world. I'm not going to get too deep into the finances and the politics of why we're going through an inflation cycle, but we are. Once again, the problem with inflation is something that you paid $1 for last year in 2021, you could pay $1.25 for in 2022. That's going to hurt a lot of businesses that operate that very low margin. Think of things like fuel refineries here in the US. Their margins are very, very slim. So as inflation goes up, as the cost of what it takes for them to make gasoline, diesel, jet fuel goes up, they're going to pass those prices on to the consumer. It's already happening. And what you're doing is you're seeing people that don't understand how the industry works or basic they don't understand basic economics, pointing their finger at the oil and gas industry saying that's why prices are going up at the pump. And it is not why prices are going up at the pump. So the thing about this inflation, I think it's going to affect more negative political pressure toward our industry because people just don't understand that our policies of our political leaders are causing or partly to cause these high prices at the pump. And the fact that as an American, as somebody in the oil and gas industry, I've watched our current administration actually ask other countries like OPEC and Russia to increase production to lower our costs at the pump. That is ridiculous, right? We have the ability to do it ourselves. So my concern is that inflation is going to drive more negative public perception and political choices toward our industry, which is going to hurt us more. But I also think 2022 is the start of the next super cycle. I think we're at the very beginning of a 10-year bull run on the oil and gas industry. It's going to be different than any other up market we've had. It's going to be quick. It may not actually go the normal 10 years like most of our cycles do. It may be a little bit shorter than that, but it's actually a good time to be in our industry. Prices are going to be high for hydrocarbons, for both natural gas and for crude oil. There's a constrained labor market. There's a constrained parts and pieces. We can't get the supply chain stuff that we need. So you add all that together, it's going to be a good time to work in the industry. We're going to be busy. We're going to be short staffed. We're going to be working our butts off, but we're going to be working and we're going to be making money. So this next super cycle, I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to help erase a lot of the downtime and the loss of value that a lot of the companies have experienced this last, say, 6 years or so. Then, labor constraints. One of the things about labor constraints is you're not going to be able to build these new petrochemical plants all over the world that I've talked about earlier. Well, the demand for petrochemicals is going up, just like demand for fuels is going up, because the global demand for the consumption of hydrocarbons is going up as we ease out of this latest round of COVID stuff. But with not enough people to come in that industry to work, especially the skilled crafts, pipe fitting, welding, machining, that sort of stuff, we're not going to be able to build these plants that could actually add to the supply of petrochemicals. Once again, that means that things that are made from petrochemicals, like your nylon shirts, lipstick, soccer balls, fishing string, the price of all that's going to go up because there's not enough worker to build the plants to make the petrochemicals to make those products. Once again, it's going to drive prices up. Not something I want to see, but this labor constraint is huge, and there's no secret island of pipe fitters or mechanics or welders that you can go find. So there's going to be a fight for these skilled craft laborers. Then, as much as I hate to see this, I think energy theft is going to be a big thing in 2022 because the price of energy is going up. And a lot of people are going to have to make a choice between heating their homes or putting fuel in their car to go to work. Nobody should have to make that choice, but unfortunately people will. And I think you're going to see energy theft skyrocket. And I don't just mean individuals stealing gasoline out of people's cars at night. I think you're going to see state-sponsored energy theft, even maybe country-sponsored energy theft. And unfortunately, that's going to not be good for the environment. When you start increasing the amount of black market oil and gas, that black market oil and gas has to come from somewhere. Typically, it's illegally tapped from pipelines, which is dangerous as hell to be hot tapping a pipeline just because you want to steal the crude or the natural gas. It also is going to affect geopolitics, especially in OPEC. I think for the first time ever, OPEC's going to really pay attention not only to member countries that don't meet production goals, but member countries that actually contribute to the black market, which hurts everybody. So I think for 2022, energy theft could be a major deal. Then, changing consumer fuel mix. Think about this. When I go fill up my car, I pull up to a gas station. It takes literally at the most 8 or 10 minutes, right? Because you're pumping gasoline. Now electrical vehicles will come in more and more mainstay. However, it doesn't take 10 minutes to fill up an electric vehicle. It takes hours, right? So what do you do at a convenience store for 2 hours while your Tesla recharges? Nothing. What do you do at a movie theater or a restaurant while your Tesla recharges? You get it, right? So what's going to happen is this changing consumer fuel mix between the internal combustion engines and electric vehicles is going to change the way we refill our vehicles. Home charging has become much bigger than it is now. You're going to see other types of recharging stations stand up that are not the typical convenience store. I fully expect you to see restaurants built around EV recharging, movie theaters, other types of entertainment, anything that can keep you occupied for an hour or so while your EV recharges. They will also still have the snacks and the drinks and the Slurpees and all that sort of stuff. But that change in consumer fuel mix is going to change the behavior of things like our C-stores, our convenience stores. I actually think it's kind of cool. The typical convenience store gas station has been the same way for 40 years now. I think it's kind of nice to upset reset that market a little bit. It's also going to be a good time if you're into alternative ways to fuel your vehicle. One of the things I think is really cool is the new F-150 Lightning that's coming out has the ability to recharge other EVs. Well, think of like Uber. What if you made an Uber service to go recharge other people's EVs? Say they know they're running low and they're going to be shopping at the mall for an hour, or they're going to be at the dentist. You drive your F-150 over there that you intentionally bought for this purpose and you charge them up. Now you're making money at it. It's just going to be a different world, different environment. I think it's really cool. Can't wait to see how it kind of settles out. And I think the very beginning of this consumer fuel mix change is happening next year, 2022. Then finally, number 10. As an industry, I think we have a chance to fight this negative public perception head on. With these rising energy costs that's going to happen over the next year, with the rising food costs that's going to happen next year, with people having to go without energy or having to make a choice between filling their car or heating their homes, I think a lot of people around the world are going to stop and take a breath and look at this trend of trying to get away from hydrocarbons, go, wait, do we really want to try to get away from hydrocarbons? Look at all the baggage that comes rather quickly with trying to get away from hydrocarbons to power our world. So I think as an industry, we have a chance in 2022 to raise our hand and say, look, we help power the world. We're the most vital industry to mankind. Let me show you how. But in order for that to work, we have to time it just right. I think 2022 will be the year for us to be able to get people's attention. But what we can't do is have industry and trade organizations run this. Honestly, the API, SPE, those organizations are not good at telling the story to our world's young people in a way that they understand it, the way they consume, right? This needs to be a grassroots movement. So one of the things that we're doing at OGGN, which is our sister company with MotorPoint, is that we're actually telling the real and true stories of our industry. And I think next year is going to be a chance for our industry to really shine. So if you want to help us, reach out. I would love to partner with companies out there and see if we can help fight this negative public perception. Do me a favor, if you like this, share it with your colleagues. Hope this helped. We will see you next time.